77 WABC. The new Bernie and Sid in the morning.
You're not joking about it?
No.
You're depressed.
No, it is what it is. I love that saying, by the way. It is what it is.
So we're here.
Because when you say that, it's all over. Like there's nothing to come back with at that point.
What do you want from me?
Right.
That's it. One dog looking this way, the other's looking that way. What do you want from me?
You're not denying anything. You're not arguing anything. It is what it is. Okay, next.
Bernie and Sid in the morning. Weekday morning, 6 to 10. Before Chris Plant.
Now on Echo devices.
77
WABC.
77 WABC.
1, 2, 3.
Sid Sports Sunday. Every Sunday. The NJDiet.com studios. 77 WABC New York. Cumulus Station. This is Sid Sports Sunday. Driven by Ramsey Mazda. Around the country. Around New York. The stories you're talking about. The stats you need.
On second and goal. Fitzpatrick to the end zone. Touchdown. His fourth of the game. It's Mike Evans.
The edge you need.
Punt shifts to the other side of Mahomes. Mahomes looking downfield.
Fires. Travis Kelce. Touchdown. Tremendous grab by Kelce.
These are the moments you won't forget.
Fake to Elliott, and they go deep downfield and getting open and making the catch at the 25-yard line and taking it all the way into the end zone is Tavon Austin. Touchdown, Cowboys.
This is Sid Sports Sunday, driven by Ramsey Mazda on 77 WABC.
18 seconds left. He's got the snap. Back the pass. Up in the pocket, shooting it long and deep, and it's picked off. They got it. Terrence Mitchell's got it, and it's all over here now. They can't take it away anymore. 11 seconds left to go. Mitchell takes the football. He's going to run it down to the best fans, the most patient fans in the league, right to the dog pound. Up and in he goes.
Now, Sid Rosenberg.
Coming to you live, 17 floors above Madison Square Garden, from the studios of 77 WABC Radio. It is Sid Sports Sunday for NFL Week number 3, and the Cleveland Browns, they won a football game. Imagine this, 37 games. They'd gone 37 games with one win, and yet they were favored to beat the Jets on Thursday night. And people said, what? Favored to beat the Jets? They won once in 37 games. And they beat the Jets, and they covered. I think the line was 3.5, and they won by 4. Big day of NFL football today. The baseball getting very, very exciting. A couple of teams clinched. One team that clinched a playoff spot, but not a home field spot just yet, which they need. The local team, the Yanks, are going to be in the playoffs.
Ripped down the left field line. It is a base hit. It'll go into the corner. D.D. Gregorius rounding third. They're waving it home. Here's the throw. Here's the play. He's in. Yankees win. And they're in. They clinch a playoff spot. A walk-off double by Aaron Hicks. And the Yankees win the game 3-2.
Michael Kay. There's a very excited Michael Kay, by the way. The Yankees going to the playoffs for the 4th consecutive year. We know the Red Sox win the East. The Indians win the Central, and the Astros win the West. So now it's the Yankees and A's. Who's going to host that wild card game? Right now, Yanks have a 1.5 game lead over Oakland, but the schedule much more difficult for the Yankees the last week of the season. 3 against the Red Sox, 4 against Tampa Bay. A's going to play teams like the Twins and the Angels. So right now, the Yankees have that edge, a game and a half, but the last week of the season gets very scary for the Yanks. On the NL side, the Atlanta Braves, they've won the East.
2-1 pitch. Fly ball, left field, playable. Ronald Acuna, fittingly. He's got it. The Atlanta Braves are National League East champions.
The Atlanta Braves win the NL East. Now, look, the rest of the National League is a mess right now. Cubbies are ahead in the Central, but the Brewers only 2.5 games back. Right there is St. Louis, 4.5 games back. And in the West, the Dodgers just a 1.5 lead over Colorado. So right now, the NL is really up in the air outside the Atlanta Braves. Guns, you're a Yankee fan. You excited about this week or what? Yeah, let's go, baby. Big Yankee fan. Maybe the biggest sports news today, though, is outside of football and baseball, and that's Tiger Woods. Shot a 65 yesterday. He is now going to the 4th and final round with a 3-stroke lead ahead of guys like Justin Rose and Rory McIlroy. Here was Tiger after yesterday.
I've gone through a lot this year to get myself to this point, understanding and fighting my way through it. And it's been, I'm certainly much more equipped than I was in March just because of what I've gone through.
Tiger actually had 6 birdies in 7 holes. Think about that for a second. Second time he's done that in his career. Birdied 6 times in 7 holes. For his career, by the way, when he has the lead going into day 4, his record is 42-2. So it seems like a pretty good bet. Tiger is going to win again today, maybe for the 43rd time. We'll see. 3-stroke lead once again over both Rory McIlroy and Justin Rose. College football yesterday, some exciting stuff. Old Dominion beat Virginia Tech. What was that? Urban Meyer was back. Ohio State won big. By the way, next week, huge matchup. Ohio State taking on Penn State. Maybe the biggest game of the week with Urban again back in control at Ohio State. But right now we got the NFL Sunday here, of course. The Jets lose on Thursday. Giants still looking for win number 1 in Houston for the Texans today. And, of course, we call this Around the League. Brought to you, my good friend Pete Morgan and the fine folks at Peerless Boilers. They do build America's best boilers. And with that said, we've got 5 stringers all across the league for later on this afternoon. 10 games in the 1 o'clock hour, 3 games in the 4 o'clock hour. Big game tonight, of course, between the Pats and the Lions. And Monday Night Football has Pittsburgh taking on Tampa Bay. Let's go to game 1. It's a big one. The Eagles, the reigning Super Bowl champs, terrible last week, find themselves at 1-1, hosting the 1-1 Indianapolis Colts. One of my favorite people in the whole business, Harry Mays, 97.5 The Fanatic, is standing by. Good morning, Harry.
Yes, Sydney, it's all about the return of number 11, the Ginger Messiah, Carson Wentz. It will actually be under center for the first time since blowing out his ACL and LCL back in December 10th against the Rams. But he's going to be missing several starting weapons. Running backs Jay Ajayi and Darren Sproles are already ruled out. Corey Clement is listed as questionable, but will probably play. His top wide receiver target, Alshon Jeffrey, is a question mark, and he hasn't played since getting off-season shoulder surgery. Things are so dire here in Philadelphia that the Eagles had to sign former wide receiver Jordan Matthews, who was on the scrap heap, and they called up rookie Josh Adams, an undrafted player out of Notre Dame, from the practice squad this week. Now, Matthews is familiar with the offense as he had great chemistry with Carson Wentz dating back to 2016, and the Eagles will hope to contain Colts wide receiver Ty Hilton, who hasn't busted out yet but is very capable. And remember, last week you said the Eagles were terrible. Their defense gave up 2 75-yard touchdowns in Tampa, and they need a big bounce-back effort. This Colts team comes into the week 3 as the best in the NFL through 2 games on third down conversions. And don't forget, Colts head coach Frank Reich was an assistant here in Philly under Doug Peterson for 2 years. Eagles fans are hoping he didn't keep good notes. Eagles are 7-point favorites, and the weather looks like light rain and temperatures in the low 60s.
Hey, Harry, what is the percent in terms of health for Carson Wentz? Is he at 100% at this point or close?
Well, I would say he's very close to 100%. He's medically cleared. He's been busting out of the stall. He wanted to start week 1, and I really think that he could have if they absolutely needed him to. Like if they didn't have Nick Foles, they may have been able to start him. But I think these last 2-3 weeks have sort of been their abundance of caution approach, if you will.
All right. Okay, Eagles 7-point favorites. Thank you, Harry. The Eagles hosting the Colts. Kickoff at 1 o'clock this afternoon. Game number 2, our football Giants can't find a win. 0-2, losing to Jacksonville, losing to Dallas on Sunday night in Houston, where the Texans have been very disappointing at 0-2, losing to the Pats and the Tennessee Titans. They're in Houston for the Giants and Texans. Here's Jeremy Brenham, Sports Radio 610, standing by. Good morning, Jeremy.
Good morning, Sid, and that's the story. A pair of 0-2 teams. I'm calling it the playoff eliminator. Only about 2% of teams have made the postseason since 1980 after starting 0-3. The Texans have losses against New England and Tennessee. The Giants, of course, have losses against Jacksonville and Dallas. For the Texans, it starts with the running game. Surprisingly, they lead the league in rushing behind Lamar Miller. Deshaun Watson helps that out as well with his scrambling ability. It's not a very good offensive line, but they've done a good job running the football behind it. It's interesting with the Texans defensively because they've not done a very good job of stacking the quarterback. They have names like J.J. Watt and Jadeveon Clowney, but it's their nose tackle, DJ Reader, who leads the team with 2 sacks. Maybe it's a good combination today, going up against the Giants, who gave up 6 sacks last week to the Cowboys as Eli Manning got sacked a ton. Bill O'Brien told me earlier this week he's worried about all of the offensive weapons, especially Saquon Barkley, who's had 45 touches in his first 2 starts of his career. Texans are favored by 6 for Sid. I'm Jeremy Branham for Sid Sports Sunday. Now back to Sid in the studio.
Thank you, Jeremy. By the way, the Giants announcing earlier today that their troubled right tackle, Eric Flowers, when I say troubled, I mean on the field. He's horrible. He's been benched for this afternoon's game against the Houston Texans. So finally, the Giant coaching staff sends Flowers to the showers. Houston and the Giants coming up later on this afternoon. Game number 3. Has anybody in the league been better than this kid? Mahomes, the quarterback for Kansas City. He's now thrown 10 touchdown passes in 2 games. That's the quickest for any quarterback ever in his first season in the NFL. The Chiefs are 2-0, hosting the 1-1 San Francisco 49ers as nearly a touchdown favorite. Let's go out to Kansas City. That's where Brooke Pryor is standing by. Hello, Brooke.
Hey, Sid. Yeah, Patrick Mahomes, definitely the story of today for the Chiefs. It's his first home start after the first 2 weeks. The Chiefs are on the road because the Taylor Swift concert and Royals games pushed him out of Arrowhead. So he's finally going to get a chance to start in front of the home crowd. He has 10 touchdowns, 582 yards, and no interceptions in 2 games. This is going to be a really hyped crowd. He's already the Chiefs' first drafted quarterback to win a game for Kansas City since Todd Blackledge in 1983.
Wow.
So he's going to be definitely the guy to watch today. But another thing to look for with the Chiefs, their special teams has been on fire, getting started with big punt returns to open the game. Between Tyreek Hill and DeAnthony Thomas, the Chiefs have really gotten on a roll there. But their defense has not been doing so well. Secondary still hurt by Eric Berry, who's listed as doubtful for today, but he hasn't practiced at all since August 11th, so I would not expect to see him out there. And with Jimmy Garoppolo and his proclivity to want to throw the ball, they're really going to need to get some stops and get some pressure on him because Garoppolo was sacked 6 times last week. Look for 49ers tight end George Kittle to have a big game because the Chiefs really struggled to contain Jesse James a week ago against the Steelers. But the receiving game for the 49ers is hurt a little bit because Marquise Goodwin is still a game-time decision. He's Jimmy Garoppolo's favorite target, and he missed part of last week with a quad contusion. So they may be a little hindered there. And then as far as the 49ers secondary goes, they've got Richard Sherman, who was on the injury report earlier this week with a sore heel. He's expected to be back. He was off the injury report for Friday. And looking at the line, the Chiefs are a 6.5-point favorite. Over-unders at 56. I would definitely take the over. It's chilly out here at Arrowhead Stadium right now, but it should be about 81 degrees by kickoff and a perfect fall afternoon to open the home season here.
Thank you, Brooke. Arizona's off to a terrible, terrible start. 0-2, not really competitive in either one of their losses. Now, the Bears come to Arizona today. The Bears have been better. Should have won week 1. Rodgers had the amazing comeback. Green Bay beat them. But they were good. Week 2, Monday night, they beat Seattle. Don't look now, but the Bears may be a decent football team. They're 1-1 in Arizona for the 0-2 Cardinals as a 4.5-point road favorite. Here's Joe Pequeno from Arizona with the latest.
Sid, good morning. Joe Pequeno here at State Farm Stadium. Yes, week 3 for the Arizona Cardinals, and we're talking about a desperate Arizona Cardinals team. The team struggling offensively, averaging only 3 points a game through the first 2 weeks, averaging a league worst 114 passing yards, the worst margin, and quarterback Sam Bradford just not getting it done. So far, the Arizona offense not clicking by any shape or form. David Johnson also struggling in the backfield, but he's a product of a quarterback passing game. They're just not getting it done through the air. Coach Steve Wilkes did mention that he would go to backup quarterback Josh Rosen in this game if Bradford can't get it done. Star wide receiver Larry Fitzgerald battling a little bit of a hamstring injury, but he is a warrior. You can expect him to suit up today. The defense at times looks sharp, but they've been on the field most of the time. They're in need of an offensive push to help them stay rested and keep them off the field. Today, Chicago comes in town. They're coming off an impressive Monday night win over Seattle. Mitchell Trubisky, the quarterback, second year. He's got weapons all around him. And, of course, they got the fierce pass rusher in Khalil Mack. He is a beast, and you can expect him to come off the edge and look at Bradford every single play. Arizona, a desperate team. Chicago comes in with all the momentum. Sid, Back to you.
All right, thank you, Joe. One more game to cover here in Washington. The Redskins look great week 1, the Alex Smith era. They're playing Arizona. Week 2 against the Colts, not so much. Green Bay, the miraculous comeback win for Rodgers against the Bears. And last week, they played the Vikings to a tie. So the Packers are actually unbeaten at 1-0-1. And the Pack are 2.5-point favorites today in Washington against the Redskins. Here's Scott Allen from the Washington Post from FedEx Field with the latest. Hello, Scott.
Yeah, good morning, Sid. That's the story here, kind of the Jekyll and Hyde Washington Redskins. There's rain in the area now, about a 90% chance of that continuing at kickoff at FedEx, where Washington looks to rebound from what was a really disappointing Week 2 loss to the Colts with Aaron Rodgers and the Packers in town. Washington will have its hands full with Rodgers. He obviously looked very sharp in leading that comeback against the Bears. He looked good in the tie last week at Lambeau Field, despite playing with that strained MCL. And I think the Redskins need to put more pressure on him. They only got to Andrew Luck once last week in the loss to the Colts. Cornerback Josh Norman and company, they've got a tough assignment with those receivers, Devontae Adams and Randall Cobb. All that said, though, the defense hasn't been the issue in Washington. You kind of alluded to it after that strong performance in Week 1. Adrian Peterson and Chris Thompson, they combined for 21 yards on 15 carries against Indianapolis. That's not going to get it done. Alex Smith, 46 attempts last week, fewer than 300 yards and no touchdowns. He's yet to develop the chemistry with his wideouts as Kirk Cousins' replacement. And all that is kind of why the Packers are installed as 2.5-point road dogs in Landover.
All right, Scotty, thank you very much. Packers, again, favored by 2.5 in Washington over the Redskins. Again, 10 games at 1 o'clock today, folks. 3 in the 4 o'clock hour, 1 game later on tonight, and, of course, 1 game tomorrow night. And it's a pretty good one. Pittsburgh Steelers in action from Monday Night Football. Chuck Todd's going to stop by today. Joe Theismann's going to stop by today. Picks with Danny B. Fantasy coming up next with Brandon Lee. We got it all for you, folks. Sid Sports Sunday for a week number 3 of the National Football League. Takes our first break of the day. We'll come right back with fantasy football right after these words.
For my hooligans in Brooklyn, dead right. If the head right, Biggie there, and night. Papa been smooth since days of under rules. Never lose, never choose to. Bruce Cruz who do something to us. Talk go through us. I just speak my peace, keep my peace. Cubans with the Jesus.
This is Sid Sports Sunday, driven by Ramsey Mazda every Sunday. 77 WABC. 77 WABC.
You gotta be ready to go.
Breakfast in bed with Sid. A dream come true. Sid Sports Sunday. Driven by Ramsey Mazda every Sunday.
Man, oh man, they can't stop us.
77 WABC.
Back on Sid Sports Sunday. You heard the promo there, by the way. That is the best morning show in New York City, bar none. Howard's on XM Sirius. That's not terrestrial radio. Bernie and Sid every morning right here, 6 to 10. Laughs, serious stuff. We do the politics. We do the news. Plenty of sports, porn, whatever you want. Bernie and Sid, Jill, Matt, Juliet, the whole crew every morning comes your way at 6 a.m. All right, we did the Stringers. We're going to talk to Joe Theismann, the great Washington Redskin quarterback. Spent 11 years there. Took them to 2 straight Super Bowls at one point. He's coming up in about 15 minutes. But it is time for our fantasy football report. We do this each and every Sunday at 8:20. Brandon Marion Lee does a great job for The Athletic. HerFantasyFootball.com. And you can find her, by the way, on Twitter at BrandonHerFBB. And here she is. Good morning, Brandon. How are you?
Good morning. How you doing?
I'm doing
great.
Great.
Beautiful day.
Not really.
I mean, come on. We're alive, you know.
No, it's fine. We're alive. We got football. You can stay home and watch it. It's all good. Hey,
Exactly.
tell me about this Eagles game today. The Eagles taking on the Colts. I would imagine, Brandon, people are a bit nervous to play Carson Wentz today. He hasn't played real football for a long time. Would you recommend playing Carson Wentz today?
I probably would not. And it's a hard thing because he's at home and he's against the Colts, and that's normally just the recipe for yes.
Right.
Right? That's fantastic. We're in a little bit of a wide receiver conundrum over there with the Eagles. They're making a bunch of signings. The good news, though, is that Alshon Jeffrey was questionable, not going to play today. But this is a good sign that he might be back next week or in week 5. So that's good news. Some people thought he'd be out for even longer.
Right.
So,
and the running backs are all
that.
beat up, too. No Jay Ajayi today. So, I mean, the point is Wentz is going to have to win it by himself, basically on offense, and he hasn't played in a very long time.
Yeah, and Corey Clement, I think, is the big play here, the running back that's going to be getting the majority of the snaps. Josh Adams was brought up from the practice squad. There's a lot going on here. Yeah, I think there's a possibility that he blows it out of the water. Like you're saying, he has to put it on his back. He does it. Everything's cool. I think there's another possibility that this is a really low-scoring game with that great Philly defense keeping Andrew Luck in check, and it could be 17-10 and not very exciting for fantasy owners.
Right. The biggest line of the week, by the way, this week has the Minnesota Vikings. They have not lost a game. They won week 1. They tied the Packers last week. Kirk Cousins doing a good job. They're nearly 17-point favorites over the hapless Buffalo Bills. And that makes sense, by the way. Buffalo is awful. But the question is here for you, Brandon, at running back, the kid from Florida State, Cook, is out again. What will the Vikings do with the majority of their carries?
Oh, yeah, it's going to be the beautiful Latavius Murray show. Oh. Everybody in fantasy has grabbed Latavius Murray. You know, listen, there are a lot of running backs with injuries right now. A lot of question marks. A lot of people are underperforming. This is a crazy year. People are throwing like crazy. There are 5 quarterbacks on pace to break Drew Brees' completion record for a single season right now.
Yeah.
That is insane. So people are going to start running the ball more. I think everything's going to kind of adjust back to the mean. But right
especially when the weather gets bad too. I mean, right now it's still kind of nice, but some of these cities they can't throw it come November.
Oh yeah, Detroit is throwing the ball 76% of the time.
Yeah, and losing.
That's insane.
And losing, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
They lost them both, against the Jets, and then, of course, to San Francisco. And I don't want Stafford throwing the ball all that much if I'm a Lions coach or a Lions fan, but I get it. Running backs not being used a heck of a lot these days, and not a lot of guys having big starts early in the season. You know, one of the things you talked about, the passing, how about the numbers for this kid Mahomes in Kansas City? 2 games in, 10 touchdowns, like 1,000 yards. Unbelievable.
Yeah. Oh man, he's a crazy man. I think a 56.5 depending on the day over under is insane. I mean, I know everyone wants to take the over on it, but it's crazy.
I think last week they combined for about 95 points, Kansas City against Pittsburgh, and week 1 they combined for about 93. So they're going to, and Garoppolo's going to score some points against that Kansas City defense. I got to tell you, that's too low of a number. Should be in the 60s.
Yeah, and you know what? Everyone, if you are playing DFS, Daily Fantasy Sports, if you're putting together your lineups, you obviously have some 49ers and Kansas City Chiefs in those lineups. Some people say get contrarian, fade someone. They're going to be too highly owned. I don't know. I don't know if you don't have Patrick Mahomes somewhere and feel good about it.
I'll tell you the team that's fun to watch right now is Jacksonville, and they're nearly a double-digit favorite today hosting Tennessee. They're 2-0. They beat the Giants. They really beat up Tom Brady and the Patriots last week. They got this kid, a wide receiver, Cole. Got a good look at him last week against New England. He makes some acrobatic, spectacular plays.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, you know, here's the thing, though. I actually just tweeted out, again, you follow me at Brandon, her FFB, but I just tweeted out my Blake Bortles report because I always, Blake Bortles has a little small place in my heart for sure. I think this may not be a great fantasy game because Blaine Gabbert is going to be starting for the Tennessee Titans. Marcus Mariota is going to be out again. That's not good for the Titans. So the Jacksonville Jaguars defense is killing it. So there's no way the Tennessee Titans are going to be scoring points.
No.
Leonard Fournette is back. So they don't have to rely on Blake Bortles like they did before. Listen, this isn't going to be an exciting fantasy day, but like you said, the Jacksonville Jaguars are the team you want to watch. They're a lot of fun, and they're very good at football. I see them going very far.
Yeah, they can win the whole thing. I think so, too. Well, one game that is exciting from a fantasy standpoint, Brandon, when you look at the quarterbacks, when you get Drew Brees going up against Matt Ryan, that's an exciting day.
Yes. I think it's really interesting that we're in a year where because of the whole Patrick Mahomes, Jimmy Garoppolo, we're not even talking about this game.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with you. This is a great divisional game. This is also a 53 over-under, which traditionally is a very high over-under for people that are paying attention. Right. So, yeah, I think this is a great start. You saw how Matt Ryan, when he's not playing in the season opener against one of the best defenses in the league, who just won the Super Bowl, actually had a great game in week 2. I think that the Falcons are a very good offense, and the Saints aren't playing defense again. Now they're out. So it looks like probably both sides it's going to be a shootout. I agree. If you are going to pivot from that Chiefs San Francisco game, you pivot over to this one. It's going to be beautiful.
Now, what about this, the Bengals and the Panthers, Brandon? The Bengals last week improved to 2-0, and Dalton threw 4 touchdowns in the first half, 3 of those to A.J. Green. Do you like the Dalton-Green combination against Carolina on the road today?
I think they're kind of in the middle of the road for me. You never sit A.J. Green in the season-long format because he's a stud. Andy Dalton's someone that you spot start where he's in a good matchup. This is a little bit more of like a mediocre matchup. It's very interesting because Vegas kind of took a very neutral stance on this with a 44 over-under. They're both basically tied with about 23 points a pop. And so they're just kind of saying, meh. You know,
right.
And I feel the same way. I'm kind of like, ugh.
Yeah.
Because do we believe this is because I'll tell you what, one of the best teams in football right now, especially on the offensive side of the ball, has actually been the Bengals, which is nuts. But can they continue? I think this is going to be a good test. I'm not starting my fringe guys, but Giovanni Bernard is starting this week. Andy Dalton is in an interesting spot start, and always with A.J. Green. And Tyler Boyd, by the way, really is breaking out.
Yes. Check out our work at The Athletic, herfantasyfootball.com. Follow her on Twitter at Brandon HerFBB. As always, Brandon, great work. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Nice to have you. Brandon Lee, we'll take a short break. When we get back, we'll talk to Joe Theismann, engineered 2 Redskin teams to Super Bowls, very opinionated about what's going on in the league today. One of the all-time greats, Joe Theismann, on Sid Sports Sunday, right after these short messages.
Sports Sunday, driven by Ramsey Mazda. 77 WABC. Free Sid, free sports thinking on demand on the free WABC radio app.
Back here on Sid Sports Sunday, my next guest was a tremendous quarterback for many, many years, to be exact, 1974 through 1985 with the Washington Redskins. In fact, led those Redskin teams to consecutive Super Bowl appearances, a win against Miami in Super Bowl 17, and then the loss to the Raiders in Super Bowl 18. Great quarterback, even a better guy, and a terrific analyst these days. It's my good friend Joe Theismann. Joe, welcome to Sid Sports Sunday. How are you, pal?
I'm great, Sid. It's always good to catch up with you.
You too, and I mean that sincerely. Let's talk about your hometown team. Week 1, the new Alex Smith era starts. Kirk Cousins goes to Minnesota. They look terrific. Road win. They beat Arizona by 18 points. Then they come home, and they look awful. And by the way, horrible play calling down the stretch in a 12-point loss to Indianapolis. Now, here's the thing. Arizona, if not Buffalo, may be the worst team in the National Football League. So really, what are, Joe Theismann, your 1-1 Washington Redskins?
Well, Sid, I don't think we know. I think we're going to get a better indication against the Green Bay Packers today. The thing is you're right. They played very well. Everybody got excited after the Arizona win. And then all of a sudden you go to the other end of the spectrum and you look at how they played against the Colts. They haven't scored a touchdown in the last 6 quarters. And that concerns me. It concerned me last year, our red zone issues. And this year, so far, the same situation. We've signed 2 wide receivers, so obviously the displeasure has been in the wide receiving core, not getting it done. I think Jay, he by his own admittance, didn't feel like he called a very good game against the Indianapolis Colts. That's going to have to change. There were about 30,000 empty seats. The people are, not very happy with what's going on as far as the product goes. And, it's the old field of dreams, Sid. If you build it, they will come. You build a good football team, they'll go. Jacksonville, for example, went through a time when they were struggling with attendance. Now it's tough to get a ticket to Jacksonville because they're a good football team. So we're going to find out an awful lot more about who the Redskins are this Sunday, and then go on from there.
You know, that division so vaunted over the years, Joe, the NFC East, seems down this year. I know the Eagles are the reigning Super Bowl champs, and they're 1-1, beat the Falcons, lost to Tampa Bay. We'll see if they're as good. Carson Wentz coming back today. But you look at the rest of that division, the Giants at 0-2 look miserable. Dallas at 1-1, not exactly world beaters. Your club, the Redskins, 1-1, looking kind of I mean, usually that's a big-time division, Joe, but early on this year, doesn't look like it's going to be that way.
You know, it's funny, Sid, when you look at this division, when you looked at this division in the past, you'd say to yourself, you know, you've got to win 10, 11 games to win this division. And the competition, the talent level, the way the teams were playing was all at a higher level. Right now, everybody's about average. You know, average to below average. You know, the Giants, I mean, their offensive line's got issues and problems. I think Saquon Barkley's going to be a star in this league, but he's not going to go very far if he doesn't have much protection. And, you know, how long can Eli keep going? You know, Dak's finding out. I thought against the Giants, the Cowboys really sort of found themselves a little bit in that football game, and Dak played that way. The Eagles get Carson Wentz back today, so that's the big thing. And the Redskins are going to have to step up if they want to compete in the division. I've said before, talent-wise, I think they're as good as anybody. But now you've got to prove it. The Redskins loaded up on the defensive side of the ball. Now they start to bring in people to try and help the offensive side. So I still think it's a wide-open division, but not for the same reasons that we've seen in the past.
The great Joe Theismann joining us here on Sid Sports Sunday. You mentioned the rookie sensation, the running back for the Giants, Joe Saquon Barkley, had that long touchdown run week one against Jacksonville, nearly 70 yards. But I got to tell you, whether he's running the football or catching screens from Eli, the kid's got no room to breathe. Not his fault. I think he's dynamic and he's going to be great. But you know, up here, Eli has not looked very good. Some of that's the offensive line. Some people like Damian Woody say, forget about it. The guy's toast. He's just finished at 37 years old, and they're starting to ask, did the Giants make a mistake by not drafting a quarterback like Sam Darnold and going running back instead? Is that too premature, or do you think maybe there's some credence to that?
I think it's premature. I think, you know, give Eli a chance. You know, the funny thing about Eli, and I said this, at least 2 throws a game from Eli are going to go to the other team. Question is, will they catch him? Right. I mean, it's a question, will they catch him? I mean, that's been his history. But then he also makes these great throws. I mean, you look at the Super Bowl runs under Eli. He played. It was because of Eli that the Giants won their last 2 Super Bowls. I mean, that's how well he played in those periods. But we haven't seen that kind of consistency from him going forward. Now, their receiving core is pretty good. You know, I mean, you paid Odell $95 million, and I still didn't understand. I still don't understand the amount of money to a guy who maybe will touch the ball 7 times a game. You know, think of it. If he catches 7 passes a game, all right, it's 130 catches roughly, 120 catches. I mean, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But that's, you know, we've got players demanding such huge salaries that there's no way that you can justify them other than at the quarterback position, because they're the guys that handle the ball all the time.
That's right.
To answer your question, Sid, I don't think they made a mistake taking Saquon, because look at what Todd Gurley has done for the Rams. Look at what Leonard Fournette has done in Jacksonville. Look at what Hunt has done in Kansas City. Look at what Kamara has done in New Orleans. The running back position, it's not as glamorous. Their life cycle isn't as long. But if you've got one, you really have a chance to be able to control football games other than just throwing it around the ballpark all day.
Yeah, but you mentioned 4 teams there, and outside of the Saints, who've got a veteran quarterback in Drew Brees, the other 3 clubs you mentioned, whether it's Goff in St. Louis, Mahomes in Kansas City, they've got young, dynamic, exciting quarterbacks. I mean, you could appreciate good quarterback play as much as anybody, Joe. What this kid Mahomes has done in 2 weeks in Kansas City, and this is a fact, no one's ever done that, ever.
Well, you got to love what the kid's doing. And how smart does Andy Reid look? Finally making the decision in the transition. I think that's one of the toughest things to do is you unload Alex Smith after his best year because you had a vision. Remember, they traded up, I think, from 23 to 12 to go get Mahomes. They moved up a ton of places because Andy saw something. Great arm, great athleticism, fits into the type of quarterback that Andy has had before. Unique talent, and surrounded by talent. There's no replacement for speed in this game. Look at what Tampa Bay is doing. Deshaun Jackson, big impact down there. Tyreek Hill in Kansas City. Look at what he's been able to do. When you've got people that can run by people, it helps your running game out tremendously, and the big plays are built in at least 2 or 3 a game.
You mentioned Jacksonville, Joe, and last year they were awfully close to getting to the Super Bowl. They were beating the Patriots late in that game, in the AFC Championship game, and they hosted New England last week, and they beat them up pretty good. I know Brady is terrible in over 90-degree temperatures. I think he's 1-6 now, but I saw a lot there from that team, even without Leonard Fournette that day. Do you think if the wins against the Giants and the Patriots that the Pats maybe have gotten a little better, which is enough to maybe win the AFC this year? The Jaguars, I should say.
You're going to think I'm crazy. I have picked the Jaguars to win the Super Bowl.
Wow.
Now, I'll tell you why. I think I had a lapse in memory because I didn't account for the Rams. I think the Rams are the best team in football because they have it all. They added 3 All-Pros. I think Wade Phillips is a highly underrated defensive coordinator. I mean, he ranks right up there with Bill Belichick as far as I'm concerned when it comes to being able to call defensive games. Sean McVay at the age of 32 has become the new resident quote-unquote genius, and he's got a ton of talent and speed on that side of the ball. Jacksonville is going to be driven by their defense. Let's face it. That's the way they're going to go. And you know the old saying said, defense wins championships.
Yep.
I don't care what It's in baseball, it's in hockey, it's in football, it's in basketball. You play good defense, you've got a chance to do something special. And I like Jacksonville. I think they're going to get better and better, and it's nice to see them believe in Blake. They believed in Bortles. Everybody else wanted to, sort of move him like Minnesota did with Case Keenum and Teddy Bridgewater and Sam. Just move him out. No, they stayed with them, and I think the team believes in them.
Yeah, no question. The new regime, Doug Marrone and Tom Coughlin, and he has fared very, very well. Joe, as always, you're the best. Great. I love you. Enjoy the football coming up later on today, and thanks for stopping by Sid Sports Sunday. Great job, buddy. Thank you.
Thanks, pal.
All right, nice to have you. The great Joe Theismann. When I was growing up, one of the best quarterbacks in the National Football League, year in and year out, 12 of them for the Washington Redskins. Short break, more of Sid Sports Sunday, driven by Ramsey Mazda.
Sunday, driven by Ramsey Mazda. 77 WABC.
All right, still to come, we're going to talk to Danny B. He'll make his picks with his buddy John Lakefield is in studio today. He'll make some picks too, so that'll be a very exciting segment. Chuck Todd stopping by next hour, host of Meet the Press, and he's got some info on gambling on football that is really great. We got all that and more coming up. But we are, in fact, driven, Sid Sports Sunday, by Ramsey Mazda, the Japanese premium brand. U.S. News and World Report named it a 2018 best brand. They build some of the most technological SUVs and crossovers available. One reason? SkyActiv technology. Basically, they get more power and performance out of their engines, which means you spend less money on gas. One of the best places to test drive the Mazda CX-5 or CX-9 is at beautiful Ramsey Mazda. Really nice dealer on Route 17 in very scenic Bergen County, New Jersey. Dealer Rater named it the best Mazda dealership in New Jersey. And how do they do it? They offer an express buying experience. No waiting around, prices, payments, and appraisals at your convenience. Not theirs. There's lots of choices, folks, for an all-wheel drive SUV. But the Mazda CX-5 is a great choice. Now, you got a big family like Danny Bianculo, you got a wife and a couple of kids, you want that third row in the seat for your car, get the Mazda CX-9. That's the premium SUV for you. Visit Ramsey Mazda today for your test drive. Special offers available all month long to qualified buyers. Subject to primary lender approval. All costs to be paid by consumers except for the taxes. Sale ends October 1st. Stick around. We're going to open the phones up today. Twice. I keep getting tweets. Sid, can we talk to you on the air like the fan? Yes, you can. The phones are open now. 1-800-848-WABC. 1-800-848-9222. You want to talk Giants, Yanks, Tiger Woods, Conor McGregor? I don't care what you want to talk about. Phones are open. We're coming right back right after these words.
77 WABC. Spectacular guests. Spectacular picks. Spectacular sports. Spectacular stories. Sid Sports Sunday. Driven by Ramsey Mazda.
Spectacular.
77 WABC.
Spectacular.
Tua wants to throw. Got his man. Catches. Again. Touchdown. They rush 4. Herbert, plenty of time. Throws across the middle. Batted up. Intercepted. And Stanford stages a stunning comeback victory at Autzen Stadium.
Old Dominion just has to snap it and hit a knee from here. LaRussa, they're going to hand off, but you just have to take a knee here. Cox goes rolling. He wants the end zone. Cox inside the 10. He stretches, and he adds in an exclamation point for Old Dominion.
Huge upset yesterday, one of the biggest, I think, in the history of the sport. Old Dominion, a 26.5-point underdog, beats 13th-ranked Virginia Tech in a shocker. Guns couldn't believe it. Guns didn't care. You also heard there from Alabama, best team in the country, whacked Texas A&M and Jimbo Fisher 45-23. And Stanford, they beat Oregon on the road 38-31 in overtime. It was a great, great comeback. Urban Meyer was back yesterday for Ohio State. They beat Tulane by 43, but that sets up a very exciting game next week between Ohio State and Penn State. I believe, what is Ohio State, 4th now in the country? Or I think Penn State is 10th. Either way, that's a monster matchup coming your way next Saturday out of the Big Ten. A couple of other surprises yesterday. I thought Texas beating TCU by 2 touchdowns was a bit surprising. And how about Army? How about my friend Tina Servasio over at Channel 5 and Army football? They took Oklahoma to overtime yesterday. If you're Oklahoma, you don't beat Army by a touchdown in overtime. That was an amazing game yesterday. And my Miami Hurricanes, not great. Beat FIU by 2 touchdowns, 31-17, but they did get their 3rd consecutive win. I do want to go to a great piece of audio from Mike Gunzelman. I got a great cast here, by the way. Bruce on the board, terrific job. Isaiah helps to produce the show, and Mike Gunzelman, the main producer. He did something last week that got him on ESPN television. We're going to play it here, but I do want to take some phone calls first. Here's Petty in Yonkers on line 2. Good morning, Petty.
Good morning, Sid. I'm an old-time listener from the fan. Before I ask my question, Sid, I just want to make a comment. I'm really disappointed in how you've changed your viewpoints dealing with politics and trying not to be objective on things when people bring constructive criticism to you and valid points.
Like what? Give me an example.
Let me give you an example, Sid. I believe this woman from California, the professor, because, Sid, let me ask you this. Number one, you have a daughter. I know that. Sid, if your daughter had told you what happened to her, and something happened to me when I was 12 years old on a train, and I never told anybody because I was shocked. Traumatized.
I'm siding with the girl. What are you talking about? Listen. Here's the deal, Petty. I don't know why you're giving this phone call to me. I'm the most rational person on this station. I work with a guy every single day who's brilliant and hilarious, who only has one point of view, and that is Trump's great and that's it. I'm the only guy on this station that sees things from every direction. Certain days I think Trump's good. Certain days I think he's awful. So I don't know what you're talking about.
All right, fine, okay. I'm glad you said that. And Sid, before I ask the question.
But Petty, if you listen to me, don't you hear that every single day? Don't you hear the Trump supporters? They can't stand me on this station because every now and then I call them out for being silly. You don't hear that every single day?
I don't know. But okay, I'll try.
What's your Yankee question?
A little more intently. But Sid, let me ask you this: who should start
thank you, Petty. Thank you for the phone call. Thank you. You got 3 choices for the Yanks. It happens to be a very good question, Craig. I mean, the guy wasted my time for about 4 minutes. I don't know what the hell he was talking about. But the question's very good. Who should start for the Yanks when they play the Oakland A's in that wild card game? Right now, the Yankees would host that game in the Bronx. By the way, I hear everything you're saying, but Mike, shut your mic off. It's bleeding onto the air. Right now, they have a 1.5 lead over the Oakland A's. The game will be played October the 3rd. And the guys that now are in line to possibly start that game are Tanaka. He's been the best Yankee in the second half. He did not pitch well last game. But for the most part, he's been the best Yankee pitcher in the second half. Then you got J.A. Happ. He's been very consistent since coming over. And then you got Severino, the ace, who actually was very good in his last start. If you're going to ask me today, of those 3, Happ, Severino, or Tanaka, who I'm going to pitch that game against Oakland, probably Happ. Probably. But here's what's a good question. None of those three guys are great, right? And none of those three guys are terrible. So the Yankees got to figure it out. They got to win that game at home first, and this week is not easy for the Yanks. They got to play 4 games in Tampa against the Rays team that's been amazing this year, and they got to go to Fenway for 3 games. In the meantime, the A's, they're playing teams like the Twins and the Angels. They got it easy. They got one difficult series in Seattle against the Mariners. So the Yankees' work cut out for them. Before we get to that wild card game, let's make sure the Yankees hold on to that lead and actually host the wild card game, which right now is not guaranteed. All right, so listen, Guns, what did you do on Friday that has given you and now this show, Sid Sports Sunday, national attention? What did you do, Guns?
All right, so Conor McGregor had his press conference, Radio City.
Why do you sound like Robin or Artie in that box?
Can you hear me here?
Yeah, now you sound like
there
you're
we
on a
go.
microphone.
My man. Yo, so Radio City Music Hall, Conor McGregor, UFC press conference versus Khabib. It was insane.
When is this fight? When is the fight?
October 6th in Vegas.
October 6th in Vegas.
First time Conor McGregor is fighting in 2 years.
First time since he slammed the bus at the Barclays with a chair, right?
Right. First time back in New York City, absolutely.
Right. He's a moron, by the way.
I love him.
He's a moron.
And Bernie loves him too. Big fan. Big
great.
fan.
Okay, great.
So anyway, I got the second question at the press conference. It was rolling live on ESPN, and then this clip made SportsCenter the next morning.
Conor, question for you. Fill in the blank. Conor McGregor is going to blank Khabib when you guys meet each other.
Stomp on his head as he's unconscious.
There it is.
My man.
And there it is.
A lot of fun.
So they played that on who's SportsCenter? Was that
SportsCenter the next morning, as well as that show Get Up got it as well with Greeny.
That's a terrible show. Yeah,
I'm doing the best I can.
That was
man.
Michelle Beadle's old show. So does he know who you are, Conor? Does he know you?
No. Well, maybe after that question he does.
Right.
But he was crazy. He had whiskey, everything. He was handing out shots to the crowd, to the fans.
Yeah.
You'll watch, right?
No. Zero interest. I mean, zero. I'm serious.
It's the fastest growing sport.
Oh, enough with that. I'm begging you to stop with that. Please stop. I hear one. Bernie tells me there were 19 great fights this weekend. I can't name any of the boxers, but they were all great. Okay, I'm sure they were great, but I think some guy Lopez fought, some guy Francisco fought. It was great. Please. But I like Conor. I know he's an entertainer. I get it. Yeah. I get it. And by the way, he put up a very game effort against Mayweather. He got killed. He never was close to winning the fight, but he was game. Yeah. He's a tough guy. But he really is a moron. Let's be honest for a second. Jeez. All right, so listen, give me the one more time here before we go back to the top of the show. Next hour, Chuck Todd is stopping by. We got the injury report, and we'll go back out to the Stringers at all the big NFL games. One more time here, just in case you missed it at the very top of the show. Your New York Yanks, we just talked about it, who's going to pitch in that wild card game. We don't know yet. We do know the Yankees did clinch the wild card appearance. Not the host yet. They got to do that this week. But they did clinch the appearance, marking the 4th consecutive year. The Yankees are in the playoffs.
Ripped down the left field line. It is a base hit. It'll go into the corner. D.D. Gregorius rounding third. They're waving it home. Here's the throw. Here's the play. He's in. Yankees win, and they're in. They clinch a playoff spot. A walk-off double by Aaron Hicks, and the Yankees win the game 3-2.
Here's a text from Pete Morgan. He says, Sid, don't take another call from an asshole who tries to talk about Trump or any of that nonsense. You are very patient and great, but it's Sid Sports Sunday. Let's leave it just that. The great Pete Morgan in Peerless Borders, right? He's all over it. And the Atlanta Braves, they won the NL East. Let's take a listen.
2-1 pitch. Fly ball, left field, playable. Ronald Acuna, fittingly. He's got it. The Atlanta Braves are National League East champions.
So that's it. Baseball's like really over, guys. Like next week's the last week of the season. That's crazy. And nothing's really done yet outside of we know the division winners in the American League, basically. Red Sox, Indians, Astros. Yankees and A's for the wild card. And we know the Braves, that's it. The NL Central, as I said earlier, is still up for grabs. The Cubs are in first now, but Milwaukee and St. Louis are right there. And in the West, the Dodgers, just a 1.5 game lead over Colorado. Arizona fade. They're now 7 back. But the Rockies are right there for the Dodgers. So it's a very exciting. Imagine this. You play like 155 baseball games. You've been playing for months and months and months and months, and yet these games this week actually matter. Somebody's going to win a division or make a wild card appearance from a game this week. They've been playing baseball for 9 effing months. How great is that? That's what's great about baseball. But we'll talk more football. We'll come back with hour number 2 of Sid Sports Sunday right after these short messages.
You know the day destroys the night. Night divides the day. Try to run, try to hide. Break on through to the other side. Break on through to the other side. Break on through to the other side, yeah. We chased our pleasures here. Dug our treasures there. Or can you still recall time we cried? Break on through to the other side. Break on through to the other side.
This is Sid Sports Sunday, driven by Ramsey Mazda. Every Sunday, 77 WABC. 1, 2, 3. Sid Sports Sunday. Every Sunday. The NJDiet.com studios. 77 WABC, New York. A Cumulus station. This is Sid Sports Sunday. Driven by Ramsey Mazda. Sid Rosenberg. The stories, the stats, the edge.
3rd and 3. Bortles. With time. Lofset. Wide open. Safarian Jenkins with the Jaguar touchdown.
The moments.
Gonzalez. He's missed to the left. He's missed to the right. And the Saints are going to win this game.
Every Sunday.
Got some 6 to play. Elliott. All the way in. Touchdown.
This is Sid Sports Sunday, driven by Ramsey Mazda on 77 WABC.
3rd, and they're a yard away. Mayfield takes the snap, gives it. Hyde runs right. He's going in. Touchdown! And for the first time tonight, the Browns lead.
Now, Sid Rosenberg.
Coming to you live, 17 floors above Madison Square Garden, from the studios of 77 WABC Radio. It is hour number 2 of this NFL week number 3 Sid Sports Sunday. Driven, of course, by Ramsey Mazda. Had a great hour number 1. Stringers were terrific. Brandon Lee gave you her fantasy picks for today. Said, go with Carson Wentz. He hasn't played in a while, but go with him. And, of course, Joe Theismann stopped by as well. This hour, Chuck Todd will be here, host of Meet the Press, do some football gambling. And we'll get some picks from Danny B. and his buddy and mine, John Layfield, in studio as well. So a lot to do. 10 games in the 1 o'clock hour, 3 games in the 4 o'clock hour. Later on tonight, the Pats are in Detroit for the Lions, and Week 3 ends tomorrow night in Tampa Bay, where the red-hot Ryan Fitzpatrick and the Buccaneers are set to host the Pittsburgh Steelers. By the way, Jameis Winston is due back next week. Deshaun Jackson said, you're not playing Jameis. Fitzpatrick's been amazing. So we'll see if Tampa sticks with the hottest quarterback. Him and Mahomes in Kansas City have been the 2 hottest quarterbacks in the National Football League. So if we get to the picks, let's go around the league one more time. We do call this Around the League. And it's brought to you by my dear friend Pete Morgan and the fine folks at Peerless Boilers. Check them out at peerlessboilers.com. Put your zip code in, find a friendly dealer near you. Get that beast out of your basement. It's actually cold today. About a month now, it's going to be brutal. Go get your Peerless Boiler today. Pete Morgan, thank you. Game number 1, Danny B's buddy, in Philly. Eagles are 1-1. They won week 1. They beat Atlanta. Not so great in the loss to Tampa Bay last week. They got the Colts. The Colts are a little better than I thought. Nearly won week 1. In fact, they had that game 1 over Cincinnati, and they beat the Redskins last week. It's the 1-1 Eagles hosting the 1-1 Colts. And my dear friend, the great Harry Mays, 97.5 The Fanatic, is live at the link. Good morning, Harry.
Yes, Sid, we are about 4 hours away from the return of number 11, Carson Wentz. He's going to be under center for the first time since tearing his ACL and LCL way back in December 10th against the Rams. But he's going to be missing several of his weapons today. Running backs Jay Ajayi and Darren Sproles are ruled out. Corey Clement is a question mark, though they say he will play. His top wide receiver target, Alshon Jeffrey, has yet to play this season. He had off-season shoulder surgery. Things are so dire that the Eagles had to sign former Eagles wideout Jordan Matthews, who was available, and they called up rookie Josh Adams, the former Notre Dame product, from the practice squad at running back. Now, Matthews has a familiarity with this offense. He had great chemistry with Carson Wentz dating back to a big year in 2016. Eagles defense will be hoping to contain Ty Hilton. He hasn't busted out yet, but is very capable, and this Eagles defense gave up big plays last week. 2 75-yard touchdowns in Tampa, and they're going to need a bounce-back effort. Keep in mind the Colts offense thus far is the best in the NFL through 2 games on third down conversions. Now, the Colts, they have a head coach named Frank Reich, former quarterback and former assistant here under Doug Peterson. The Eagle fans are hoping he didn't keep good notes while here in Philly. Eagles are a 7-point favorite, and the weather looks like light rain and temperatures in the low 60s.
Harry, thank you so much. Harry Mays at the link. It's the Eagles and the Colts. This one big for me. My football Giants off to a miserable start. Losses to Jacksonville and Dallas. In Houston, where the Texans are off to a very, very slow start. Losing week 1 to the Pats and really lackluster in a loss to Tennessee last week. It's the 0-2 Giants in Houston for the 0-2 Texans. Jeremy Brenham from Sports Radio 610 is live at NRG Stadium. Good morning, Jeremy.
Good morning, Sid. And yeah, both of these teams are desperate for a victory. Both are 0-2, like you mentioned. And if you look at the numbers, teams that start off 0-3 pretty much have a mathematical chance of not making the playoffs that season. So it's a playoff eliminator, so to speak, in NRG Stadium today. And for the Giants, Saquon Barkley, the rookie, has been outstanding in the first 2 weeks, has been a heavy emphasis of that Pat Shurmur offense, has had 45 touches in his first 2 starts. And Bill O'Brien told me earlier this week that they have to be focused on where Barkley's at all times. Also, NFL Network is reporting this morning that the Giants are going to bench Eric Flowers.
That's right.
And will start Chad Wheeler at right tackle. And to give you an idea of how important football is in Texas, Eric Flowers and Chad Wheeler are trending in Houston on Twitter. They'll try to do a better job of protecting Eli Manning, who last week was sacked 6 times for the Cowboys. And the Texans are hoping to start to get that pass rush going of their own, too. It's been non-existent. They have guys like J.J. Watt, Jadeveon Clowney, Whitney Merciless, who should be a murderer's row of getting to the quarterback. They haven't been able to do that so far the first 2 games. They hope they can turn that around today against the Giants. One thing to look at for the Houston Texans offensively is that they lead the league in running, which is interesting. When you have Deshaun Watson, DeAndre Hopkins, it's the running that has been getting the Texans going offensively. Texans favored by 6, the latest number. For Sid Sports Sunday, this is Jeremy Branham. Now back to Sid, the studio.
Thank you, Jeremy. Nice job. Yeah, Deshaun Watson's been terrible these first 2 games. This guy's been the most exciting player in the National Football League. He's the starting quarterback for the Kansas City Chiefs. And I think he just threw another touchdown like 2 seconds ago, I swear to God. He's got 10 of them. Chiefs are hosting Jimmy Garoppolo and the 49ers today, where the Chiefs are about a 6.5-point favorite. Brooke Pryor writes for the Kansas City Star, and she's at Arrowhead Stadium this morning. Good morning, Brooke.
Hey, Sid. Yeah, Patrick Mahomes definitely the storyline to watch going into this game. This is his first home start. He's had 3 starts before this. All of them have been on the road, including the first 2 weeks when the Chiefs were at the Chargers, and then last week against the Steelers. And he had a tremendous start. 10 touchdowns, 582 yards, no interceptions. He's the first Chiefs drafted quarterback to win a game for Kansas City since Todd Blackledge in 1983. And the reason that he's so successful, all these weapons that he has around him, Tyreek Hill, Sammy Watkins, Travis Kelce, Kareem Hunt, these guys are really helping this young quarterback sing. He is looking for just a huge welcoming to Arrowhead. The tailgating is already going on in full swing. And another thing to watch would be the Kansas City special teams. They have had this amazing fast start. Tyreek Hill, the guy to watch there, had a 91-yard punt return touchdown against the Chargers. Last week it was DeAnthony Thomas. Those 2 guys are huge. Then the defense, though, hasn't had as stellar of an outing as the offense. They're really helped out by the offense putting up a whole bunch of numbers, so I would expect a shootout again today. I think the over-under is set at 56. Definitely take the over. The Chiefs' defense will likely be without Eric Berry. He's listed as doubtful, but he hasn't practiced since August 11th. Their Chiefs are going to want to get pressure on Jimmy Garoppolo. He was sacked 6 times last week in the win against Detroit. But Garoppolo could be hurt again this week with his favorite target, Marquise Goodwin. a game-time decision. He has a quad contusion, is working through that. If he can't go, I would look to tight end George Kittle to have a big game. The Chiefs have really struggled to contain tight ends. Jesse James for the Steelers ran and caught all over them just a week ago. And then in the secondary for the 49ers, they've got Richard Sherman, who was on the injury report earlier this week with heel soreness. He was off of it by Friday. He's looking healthier, and he may pose a problem to Patrick Mahomes and those weapons that he's trying to get to. It's about 50 degrees in Kansas City right now, but it should warm up to about 81 by kickoff, and it'll be a beautiful day for some football. Back to you, Sid.
All right, thank you, Brooke. Let's go to Washington. The Redskins are going to host the Packers today. Obviously, Washington, not great last week. They lose to the Colts after beating Arizona week 1. I just spoke to Joe Theismann last hour. What are the Washington Redskins? We're going to find out today. The Pack comes in 1-0-1. Nice comeback victory to beat the Bears 2 weeks ago. Tied the Vikings last week. Rodgers not 100%. Still finds a way to win. It's the Packers at the Redskins. Scott Allen from the Washington Post is standing by. Good morning, Scott.
Good morning, Sid. Yep, the Redskins will have their hands full with Aaron Rodgers and the Packers looking to rebound from that disappointing loss to the Colts. And I think, as we all know, Green Bay, they're a threat in the NFC for as long as Rodgers is standing. He's on that sprained MCL suffered in the season opener, but he looks sharp against the Vikings, and with receivers Devontae Adams and Randall Cobb off to hot starts for Green Bay, that's a real tough assignment for Josh Norman in that Redskins secondary. I think getting more pressure on Rodgers, which they weren't able to do against Andrew Luck last week, only 1 sack against the Colts, could be key for Washington improving to 2-1, and this is ridiculous, for the first time since 2008.
Wow.
There's a 90% chance of rain here in Landover, so I think the Redskins would love to lean on that running game, but it's easier said than done given what happened last week. A kind of breakout performance for Adrian Peterson in Week 1, but he and Chris Thompson combined for only 21 yards on 15 carries against the Colts. In the passing game for the Skins, Alex Smith, he's Kirk Cousins' replacement, obviously. He's yet to find that chemistry with some of his wideouts. I would expect the Redskins to try to get slot receiver Jamison Crowder a little bit more involved this week. After Smith attempted 46 passes last week, most of them were of the dump-off variety to Chris Thompson and tight end Jordan Reed. The Packers, slight 2.5-point favorites here in Landover. We'll see if Rodgers is able to hold up against this Redskins pass rush. Back to you.
All right, thank you, Scott. Scott Allen in Washington. It's the Redskins and the Pack. This is, for a lot of people, their favorite time of the show. Want to make some money this afternoon? We got Danny B live in studio.
This segment is sponsored by DBWins.com.
All right, thank you for that, Bruce. So today's picks and spreads analysis is sponsored by DBWins.com. DBWins.com, picking winners for 4 decades and betting professionally for 35 years. Get the winners at DBWins.com. More importantly, this guy's one of my best friends, Danny Bianculo. He's a great guy, great father. His lovely wife is there, his 2 beautiful boys. So if you don't pick winners every single week, I don't care. I love you.
I couldn't pick my wife out of a photo lineup last week, said.
Well, the first
it was
2
one
weeks,
of those weekends.
First 2 weeks haven't been great to you so far.
Baseball's been killing. I've been killing it in baseball. Ask the big man here. But we're not. I know we're not talking baseball. But I do it all, Sid.
I know you.
And I don't play 5 games a day, Sid.
That's true.
Okay,
That's true.
so let's make that perfectly clear.
And basketball when it comes, and hockey.
Got Tim Donaghy here.
Oh, you do? You got him. Okay, good.
Tim Donaghy works for me, former NBA referee.
That's right.
Sure,
That's
since 2010.
Right. So we got all that at the website, dbwins.com. We got games today, but joining you in studio is a buddy of yours. I'm a fan of his.
Oh, big guy.
Yeah, Big John Layfield. How are you, buddy?
Yeah, great to be here.
You got to put the mics on for these guys. Say it again.
Great to be here. Big fan of your show. Love listening to your show.
Thank you, John. Thank you. And now, what do you? I've seen you on Fox Business. What exactly is your day job? What exactly do you do, John?
I do TV, so I don't work for a living.
Right.
Before that, I was a professional wrestler. Before that, I was a professional football player. So
Right.
I've never worked for a living.
So you went from pro wrestling, pro football. Now you do TV stuff, but you do like money stuff, business stuff.
I worked on Wall Street for about 3 or 4 years. So it was a natural transition to go into Fox Business.
Right.
And so it was something that was a natural outcropping of it.
Okay, beautiful. All right, we got John Layfield in studio. We got Danny B in studio. 5 games, I guess. Danny, why don't you start?
We're going to go back and forth,
You
John
go back and forth. I love that idea.
And again, I'm a Cowboy fan. I went against them last week. It backfired on me. It backfired on me, but
Right.
today I got to go against them again. I got to take Seattle. It's a must-win. They're at home. They've looked awful. Cowboys don't look great either. And
No.
John and I are both Cowboy fans, and I think we both agree on this one, John.
Yeah, they've got no wide receiver. They've got no way to really move the ball down the field. Last week, Dak Prescott really surprised the Giants by being able to run the ball. He lowered his shoulder. He can't do that 16 games a year. He gets killed.
And he had one big play. I mean, let's not get that 75-yard touchdown, John, like 3 minutes in. After that, the Cowboy offense was very pedestrian.
Yes.
Yeah, the Giants just stink. So I think you guys are right. Dallas's offense may be
Dallas sucked the least out of two bad teams.
There you go. So you like Seattle today? What's
Unfortunately, yes. I'm a
Yes,
huge Cowboy
both of us
fan.
agree, and the wise guys like it as well.
Seahawks right now are a 1.5-point home favorite over Dallas.
It swung. Dallas was a 1. Now Seattle is at 1.
Okay, so Danny and John like the Seahawks as a small home favorite over the boys.
Correct.
What's next? What's pick number 2?
Well, I'll tell you what. This Rams team, explosive. It's
Best
going to be
team
a
in
good
football.
game. I think that they cover the spread pretty easily against the Chargers. Both teams from L.A. I know Los Angeles fans have to be excited about this season, but I'm going with the Rams minus the 7.
I think the Rams are the best team in football. Rivers will keep the Chargers in that game.
Great quarterback.
Yes, and they'll score. The Rams have a great defense, too.
Chargers don't.
Chargers don't, right. You like that game, too, John?
I do. I think Todd Gurley's virtually unstoppable. I think they're just going to run him to death. He's the best running back in the league.
Yeah, well, that's true. And Gobber's a pretty good quarterback, and they got a great defense. So you both like the Rams minus the touchdown against the Chargers.
Correct.
In the battle for Los Angeles this afternoon. All right, pick number 3, Danny. What do you got, pal?
Well, what I got is probably going to surprise you here. Everybody's taking Tampa. Fitzpatrick. I've gone against them, and it's backfired. I got to go with Pittsburgh tomorrow night. It's a solid club.
What are you doing here?
Listen, I'm
a road
do what you
favorite.
got to do. Listen.
You always tell me take the home dog.
I don't always tell you that.
Okay.
Sometimes you got to punt, and I'm going to punt tomorrow. I'm not big on Fitzpatrick.
You're not big on him?
No.
The guy's been the best quarterback in the history.
For 2 games. For 2
Well,
games.
he's only played 2 games.
Well, tomorrow we'll find out what he does.
Oh,
right?
listen.
I like Pittsburgh tomorrow.
It's not. They are favored
by 1.
And Ben's great,
right?
But they can't stop anybody. That Steeler defense. They're long ways from Mean Joe Green and Jack Ham.
Correct.
They're going to score 100 points tomorrow night, Tampa Bay.
Well, then bet the other way. Then do what you got to do, big guy.
But at some point, the clock strikes midnight on this Fitzpatrick. I think
so?
I love this story. I think it's God's gift to the NFL. They need something like this. This reminds you of McMahon back in the '86
Right.
or Riggins back with the great Hogs of the Washington Redskins. This guy's awesome for the NFL, but I think the clock strikes midnight. Now, by the way, I don't think he gets replaced. I think they're going to get rid of Jameis Winston and his $20.9 million next year.
Well, Deshaun Jackson already came out, the wide receiver, and said, "You're not sitting Ryan."
He just wants his jewelry
Publicly.
back.
Yeah, of course he does. But listen, the reason why Fitzpatrick is playing well, too, is he's got weapons.
Right.
Mike Evans.
He does.
Deshaun Jackson. So, listen, I would just take the over. 53.5. It's going to be like 38-35.
A shootout? You think it's a shootout?
Yeah. Neither team plays great defense. What is pick number 4, Danny?
Pick number 4. I'm gonna sizzle you with a little exotic play here. Okay,
Oh, I like
it might
that.
shock you.
Okay.
You know what a teaser is, Sid? Right? A 7-point teaser.
Well, is it 2 teams, 7 points, 3 teams, 10 points?
Right. I'm going with a 2-team 7-point teaser.
All right.
There's all types. They got the sweetheart teaser, but I'm going to keep it simple.
You could have teased the Rams down to pick them, by the way.
I could have, but I didn't.
Yeah, okay.
But I'm going to tease, and this is going to shock you.
All right.
As awful as both of these teams are.
You're not taking Buffalo plus 24, are you?
No. I'm going to go with the Gents.
You're taking the Giants.
Plus 13.
That's good on the teaser line.
I like that, and this one might frighten you.
Okay.
Because he looks scared.
He looks scared.
Arizona.
Donald Trump?
Arizona up to 13.
Will you stop with Arizona?
Listen,
every damn week you take Arizona. They're the worst team ever. They may be the worst team in the history of the league.
But you're grabbing 13 points
I
in
don't
the
give you
teaser.
grabbing 33.
Okay.
All right, so you're taking Arizona
With the
13?
teaser. Hey, listen, I'm going to make it clear. If you want my best bet today, just call the office, Sid.
What's the number?
You give out the number. You know what? You don't know my number? 800-308-9003.
I did know that.
I'll give it away to everybody that calls. 1-800-308-9003. Again, I'm not playing five
What game is it? What is the game you like most?
I'm not going to tell you. You got to call. I'm not going to tell you. You got to call because then they'll start guessing. You got to call for that one.
All right. Give them the number one more time now.
1-800-308-9003. My guys are standing by because I'm here with you.
That's right.
In this beautiful
Somebody's
studio.
got to man the office while you're hanging out with me.
Absolutely.
You got another pick, John? He did the teaser pick.
Well,
What do you like?
Danny was 9-2 in baseball this past week. He's made me a lot of money, so he's done a great job. But I disagree completely with the Arizona pick. No disrespect to Danny.
No problem.
Awesome.
I get it.
They've scored 6 points in 2 games.
He looks frightened, though, doesn't he?
Khalil Mack could actually eat somebody, physically eat somebody in this game.
Let me tell you something.
I just don't think the under is 39. I think the under might be a good bet, but I just don't think they can score any points on.
He does look scared. Both of those quarterbacks, Manning, he looks scared. Bradford looks scared.
Hey, and see, Houston, I think Houston's going to cover. The reason is you have Jadeveon Clowney back, you have J.J. Watt back, and you got one of the worst offensive lines in the league. You've got one of the best running backs, Shaquan Barkley. That kid is a stud, but every yard he's gaining is because he's making the first guy miss.
Right.
Because nobody's blocking for him.
No doubt.
I think Manning is still a decent quarterback, but Beckham is a great wide receiver. But I think that
I
think Watt and Clowney will be in that backfield more than Manning.
He'll be in his wallet.
And sooner or later, Deshaun Watson has to regress to the mean.
You
he
would
has
think
to play
so.
a decent
You would
game.
think so. And you're right. Look, the Giants, they benched the right tackle today, Eric Flowers. He's been god-awful since they drafted him out of Miami 2 years ago for exactly what you're talking about. They're scared to death that Eli's going to get killed today.
He looks scared.
Giants have always been quarterback killers. Now they're just killing their own.
I know. I tell you, the Bears, interesting team. I like that
Mack
team.
is a beast, though, isn't he?
Mack's a beast. Howard is a really good running back. Trubisky's still a kid. He's not going to be great yet, if he ever will be. But I like that Chicago Bear team. One more pick, Danny. What do you got for me? One more.
John, I'm gonna punt. You give out this one.
Well, unfortunately, I told you I agree with you on Dallas. I disagreed with you on. To me, Chicago is my pick of the day.
Washington's getting some love, believe it or not. Plus the points at home. It's tough to go against Aaron. I'm a big fan. I told you I like them to win it all. Right? They're 2-0, but I don't know. It's supposed to be.
But Washington's playing Green Bay.
I'm sorry. I meant to say Washington at home.
Right.
Plus the points playing Green Bay. My bad.
Right.
Rodgers is a beast, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
And I like the Packers to win it all this year. I said it in week 1.
Really?
But the wise guys are all over Washington today, believe it or not, plus the points.
Home dog.
Home dog. You got to bow wow it. Bow wow it.
I guess. You know,
it's tough, believe me.
The key is pressure on Rodgers. You got to make him move laterally. That's what Chicago made a stupid mistake in that second half. They're only rushing 4 people. You got to move the guy sideways when he's got a bad wheel like that. You let Aaron Rodgers sit back there long enough, he's going to kill you. I don't care who you are.
True. Yeah. Listen, it's not easy. None of this is easy, first of all. 5 picks, that's a third of the board we're giving out here. You know how hard it is, Sid.
Very hard.
This stuff ain't easy, especially the NFL.
Right.
The NFL's tough.
One more time, give out the phone number for the really good Danny B pick of the day.
That's right. It's a VIP play, my friends. 1-800-308-9003. The staff is standing by.
Check them out at dbwins.com. And really, all the sports. It's an amazing job.
It's not just football. It's everything. You got to play it all.
Absolutely.
Play it all.
Well, you guys were great. Thank you, Danny and John.
Honored to be on your show, Sid.
Thank you.
I've been looking forward to this.
The big man. Look at the size of this guy.
He's a great-looking guy, by the way.
That's why. If I lose a pick, nobody's going to mess with me. He's my bodyguard. That's why I walk around Manhattan with this guy.
All the time.
6'6", 300 pounds of him.
That's right. We'll come back and do the injury report. Then you're going to hear Chuck Todd, the host of Meet the Press. He'll be on NBC in an hour, breaking down football gambling. You're not going to believe this guy, how good Chuck Todd is.
I like him. I'm a fan.
Wait to hear this segment.
But I'm a Trump fan, too, though.
I know you are. Chuck Todd and injuries right after these short messages.
This segment was sponsored by dbwins.com. Opinions expressed are solely those of the host and dbwins.com and do not necessarily reflect those of WABC or Cumulus Media. Sunday, driven by Ramsey Mazda. 77 WABC. Sid Sports Sunday, driven by Ramsey Mazda. Every Sunday, New York sports and more. 77 WABC and the free WABC radio app.
Let's get out here with the Get on it.
Back here on Sid Sports Sunday, this guest, well, it doesn't get bigger than this. Not only is he my favorite person on television, and I mean that sincerely, but I think he's the most important. I know for a fact that Meet the Press on Sundays is the most important show on television. He does a wonderful job as the host, moderator, whatever you want to call him, and also every single day on MSNBC starting at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on MTP Daily. And most important of all, he's a weekly guest of Bernie and Sid in the morning every Friday at 6:45 a.m. He is the very talented, the great Chuck Todd. Good morning, Chuck.
Good morning, Sid. Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday to you. The best part about this show is it's over at 10 a.m. I live exactly 20 minutes from the Garden, Upper West Side. I'm home at 10:30, just in time to put on NBC and watch you on Meet the Press.
There you go. There you go. And you don't throw stuff. What, about half the time you throw stuff at the TV? Not the whole. That's the goal.
You know that's true, by the way. By the way, who's
that's right. I know.
Who's coming up later on today? Anybody really, really big?
Well, well, we're obviously knee-deep in all things having to do with the Supreme Court, so we'll just leave it at that.
Gotcha.
For now. That's obviously a story that's moving fast.
Well, I can tell you why. We do a lot of gambling on this show with football. I can do the old Brett Kavanaugh, is he in or is he out? I would ask you, though, from a political standpoint, Chuck, before we get to the games, it's been a wacky couple of years for the NFL, the kneeling scandal, President Trump obviously getting involved, and for my taste, too much involved. I do remember we're a year away from Hurricane Maria. That weekend, he sent out 21 tweets, and 17 were about the National Football League, a bit much. But, there has been some repercussions. This week, the NFL Experience closing in Times Square. So the merchandising is down, ratings down. What are your thoughts on the political repercussions for the NFL?
Look, I do think that the NFL needs to not look for one reason why they're having issues. I think it's a collection of reasons. I think you can't just assume this attendance issue. This is as much about the in-game experience versus it's a lot better to watch football at home. I mean, I'm sorry, Red Zone or going to the Packers-Redskins game today. It's not a close call, and I mean that without unless you could put the Red Zone in my seat, which I know that was what the Jacksonville. But I actually think their biggest competitor is themselves. I mean, look at this. And by the way, try watching a regular football game without Red Zone anymore. And the beauty of Red Zone is what? You don't have to sit through the instant replay delays. You don't have to sit through the TV timeouts. You don't have to sit through punts. I actually think their biggest problem is that. I'll be honest with you. Is the in-game experience. It is a better football experience for me to be at home than to be at the stadium.
Well, when you say better,
to me, isn't it?
No, when you say better, you mean BETTOR. No, but
that way.
No, but
you're right.
It's true. The NFL has thrived because of the gambling, whether it's on individual performances, that's called fantasy, or guys betting five times on a game. And listen, I'm guilty of that. Giants played the Jaguars, Chuck, week 1, locally on CBS in New York. I spent less time on CBS than on Channel 311, the Red Zone, where I watched every team across the league score a touchdown.
Yes. For me, it's 7:03. I watch DirecTV's Red Zone. The only difference is our guy has bigger ears than I think the guy that's on the NFL Network. I say this. I love Andrew Siciliano, and I love the other guy. I've seen them both. But it is, I truly believe, the diehard football fan does not want to go to the stadium anymore.
Well, I think you're right.
Problem.
I think you're right.
And I think it's just, if you look at it like you look at it, treat it like politics. Worry about your base first. And the base football fan right now gets a better experience at home than they do at the stadium. They need to figure that out.
100% true, Chuck Todd. Now, listen, Chuck, being you're on the most important show on television, you do discuss very important topics, but fans of you know that you're a diehard sports guy. You love the Miami Hurricanes on Saturdays. You do watch a lot of NFL on Sundays. What do you think? And you do admit you'll place a wager every now and then. So what do you think about sports gambling now legal up here in New Jersey? People seem to think New York is right down the road. Do you think we're getting to a place where much sooner than later it'll be legal in just about every state?
I think it's going to be an interesting competition between legalized pot and legalized sports gambling.
Wow.
I think it's going to be, because what do both do for states? Both allow state legislators to raise taxes without raising your taxes or my taxes, right?
True.
No. We're going to do sin taxes. So in this case, it's pot taxes and gambling taxes. And we have, as we've seen as a society, we are okay when we raise a tax like that, we get angry and vote out politicians when they make the tax individual at me, right? So these are taxes I choose to pay if I choose to gamble, or if I choose to smoke pot, or if I choose to drink liquor, right? Those type of taxes are taxes that the public is more comfortable with, because it puts the power in me. I decide whether I want to pay that tax. And so in that sense, I think it's going to be all, I guess Utah will be the last state to do sports gaming because of our friends at the Mormon Church. But I'm going to guess that it's in 49 states. By 2025.
Agreed. Now, by the way, Orrin Hatch should have $5,000 on the Giants on Sunday night, but that's a whole other story,
yes,
Chuck. I love Orrin. Hey, I know that a lot of guys took a bath last week. Giants, people loved them against Dallas. I know you go, woo. The Eagles losing to Tampa Bay, the Pats losing to Jacksonville. There are a lot of games that folks thought were easy that went the other way. So here's my question to you, Chuck. How do you make money betting on the National Football League this year and moving forward?
Look, I am getting into the whole. I mean, it feels like the only way to make money in the NFL is parlaying and teasing, right? So, and this is what's my favorite part of this week. To me, there are 4 teams. There are 3 games that have incredible tease potential, right? It's when those spreads sit anywhere from 6.5 to 7.
Now you do know quickly, but just stop you for a second that every bookmaker, every casino, anybody that allows you to bet, and they'll throw you, like you said, 6.5, 7. Yep. Some give you 14, 10-point teasers. They do say that's a sucker bet.
It can be a sucker bet if they're by themselves. The question is, how confident? It becomes about your confidence. So do you believe that team can win or lose? Do you think there's no chance? So Rams, Chargers, right? The reason you would do this is that you want to improve your odds at winning, at suddenly winning 2 games. So you take 2 teasers. And so then let's say I take the Rams, give me the Rams and the Patriots, and I tease them both down. Suddenly I get the Patriots with a half point, and I get the Rams giving a point.
Right.
And I'm getting the same odds as betting one of them trying to cover a touchdown. The reason I say this is I look at this week, and it seems to me it's that Rams-Chargers game. There's 2 games that scare me. Rams-Chargers sitting where they're sitting, and Colts-Eagles sitting where that sits. The idea, Colts-Eagles is sitting at 7, or at least I got it at 7. My guess is it probably by game time that moves down to 6.5. But a lot of people are going to bet against the Colts, bet on the Rams, and use them as teasers. It tells me that the Colts or Chargers are likely going to win outright and screw up a whole bunch of teasers.
Right.
So it's like it is one of those that I've been like, scared. That Colts-Eagles thing, that's a game that says stay away.
Well, I'll tell you what.
On one hand,
you may have a point. You may have a point about the Colts when you consider, Chuck, that last week they were expected to lose badly, and they won easily in Washington against the Redskins, and the Eagles go back to Carson Wentz this week, and let's face it, he hasn't played competitive quarterback in a long time. Nick Foles has been that quarterback for months.
No, it smells like a sucker bet. It's like, in that, Carson Wentz is back, and remember, boy, that offense worked a lot better when he was there. I have no doubt about it. But are you assuming that on game 1? Right? Are we assuming that on game 1, or is that next week?
Right.
And then the Rams-Chargers. Chargers are a good team. Why are the Rams given 7? You know what that smells like to me? That's because Vegas has lost a ton on the Rams in weeks 1 and week 2. And so what are they going to do? They're making that a touchdown or better to try to get idiots like you and I probably to keep betting on the Rams to cover, that they're going to be this, that there isn't a high enough number yet, right? There isn't a high enough number. And the Chargers are a good team. And this is always when the Chargers cover, right? It's when they start creeping in Phillip Rivers is always good for covering a touchdown.
Yes.
But it does feel like it is Vegas trying to take back sucker money that people won on the Rams in week 1.
I love that call. 1 more minute to go. That's a great call, Chuck. One of the games that also I find interesting is the Steelers. Steelers have no defense. They haven't for years, by the way. Antonio Brown walked out of practice this week. Le'Veon Bell is still not there. The Chiefs, I think, scored a touchdown again 10 minutes ago. And they're in Tampa Bay taking on a team with Ryan Fitzpatrick, the new Conor McGregor at quarterback. Nobody can stop him. Why are the Steelers favored Monday night on the road in Tampa when they can't stop anybody and the Buccaneers score every possession?
You tell me. That's what I've been trying to figure out. That one to me is my favorite bet on the board.
Right.
This to me, you know what this is? There's too many idiot Steelers fans that just plunk money down on the Steelers. That's what that tells me. You know, you always have to be aware, right? Steelers fans, who drinks the most Kool-Aid? Steelers fans and and Packers fans.
Yep.
And then sometimes Cowboys fans, right?
Yes.
Which means they're overbet on, right? Patriots fans too. So you always have to assume there's a half a point to as much as a point and a half too much on a Steelers game sometimes, and this one feels that way. This is one, by the way, I hope people got on it early, because this is a line that moves late, I bet.
Totally agree. Chuck, you're amazing. Whether you're talking politics on MTP Daily, Meet the Press on Sundays, or football with me, you're the best. I love you. Enjoy the football. I'll watch Meet the Press coming up later on this morning, and we'll talk again next Friday on Bernie and Sid. Thank you.
You got it, brother.
Take care. All right, there's Chuck Todd. That's some interesting stuff. So, you know, he likes today. It's always about this show. We had Bill O'Reilly on week 1. You're going to hear Bill O'Reilly talk about the politics and Donald Trump, and you're going to hear Chuck Todd do his thing. That's what those guys do. But to hear guys like that on this show, Sid Sports Sunday, which we've now done over the first 3 weeks, to have those guys talking about like real football stuff and gambling, it's fun. It's different. You know, it's just... I enjoy hearing that stuff. If I was driving in my car, forgetting about the fact that I'm doing the interview, and I'm great. I get all that, trust me. But if I was in my car, I'd be like, wow, that's actually pretty cool. Hey, folks, this week's injury report is sponsored by Manhattan Sports Medicine and Wellness Group, dedicated to helping New Yorkers lead physically dynamic lives free from pain. MSM Wellness, the leader in sports rehab and physical therapy, msmwellness.com.
Devastating injury on the cart, clutching that left ankle area.
Injury report. Powered by Manhattan Sports Medicine and Wellness Group. Sid Sports Sunday, driven by Ramsey Mazda. 77 WABC.
Let's get right to that injury report. Eagles quarterback Carson Wentz, he will be back today against the Colts, but both of his running backs, Jay Ajayi and Darren Sproles, are both out for the Eagles, who also, by the way, are beat up at the wide receiver position. Larry Fitzgerald listed as questionable for today's Arizona game against the Bears, and they stink as it is. Vikings running back, the kid out of Florida State, Dalvin Cook, is out again with a hamstring injury. Look for Latavius Murray to do much of the running for the Vikings today. Jaguars running back Leonard Fournette is back for the Jaguars today as they look to stay unbeaten against the Tennessee Titans. And Atlanta Falcons running back Devonta Freeman is still week to week with a knee injury. He will not play today for the Falcons in their big matchup against the Saints. Phones are open, 1-800-848-WABC, 1-800-848-9222. We've covered it all today, the 14 NFL games going on, the baseball playoffs, the Yankees clinch a spot, the Atlanta Braves clinch a spot. We did the college football. We did Conor McGregor. My guy Guns asking Conor McGregor a question on ESPN at the press conference from Radio City on Friday. We've done it all. One more segment, the phones, and getting ready for kickoff. But after these short messages.
Sid Sports Sunday, driven by Ramsey Mazda. 77 WABC. Down on 3, 1, 2, 3, Sid Sports Sunday, driven by Ramsey Mazda. Each and every Sunday morning, 8 to 10. Hey, go give it to you. Let's go get it. 77 WABC.
Come on. Take some phone calls here as we get ready for the kickoff is still about 3 hours away, of course. Jets already lost Thursday night, blew a 2-touchdown lead and lost to the Browns. Only the Browns' second win in their last 39 tries, and their first win in a very, very long time. And it was the rookie quarterback Baker Mayfield, the number 1 pick overall for the Browns, outplaying the number 3 overall pick, Sam Darnold of the Jets, to give Cleveland. You know, Cleveland's been in every game this year. They tied the Pittsburgh Steelers. Forgot what last week they were in the Saints. They missed an extra point late. They could be 3-0. That guy, Hugh Jack, is doing a pretty decent job out there. And as for the Jets, they're 1-2, and well, we'll see. You know what's funny? One of the matchups today is one of the great traditional matchups in the history of the National Football League, and that's the Dolphins. So they are hosting the Raiders. Dolphins are 2-0. By the way, the state of Florida is unbeaten. The state of Florida is undefeated. Tampa Bay Buccaneers 2-0. Miami Dolphins 2-0. Jacksonville Jaguars 2-0. They're 6-0, the state of Florida. And the Dolphins have been pretty good. They win week 1. They beat Tennessee. They beat the Jets in week 2. The Raiders have not been good. John Gruden goes back to the Raiders. They haven't won a game yet. They were embarrassed week 1, and they lost to Denver in week 2. But anyway, that is a great old matchup. With the AFC Championship game, you remember the big plays and John Madden coaching for the Raiders and Don Shula coaching for the Dolphins and Bob Greasy and Ken Stabler and all those great games. That is, back in those days, of course, and I'm talking about the 70s, the Dolphins, the Raiders, the Steelers. Steelers were the best team in football, obviously. And even before then, the Chiefs. Chiefs behind Len Dawson get to a couple of Super Bowls, lose to Bart Starr and the Packers. Raiders make the switch from Darryl LaMonica to Ken Stabler. They remain good. Dolphins are great with Greasy, Zonka, and those guys. And here comes Bradshaw. And then Staubach, of course, he takes over in Dallas for Craig Morton and Dandy Don Meredith. Morton, by the way, eventually going to the Giants. Anyway, here is Ricky in the Bronx. He's on line 2 today. Good morning, Ricky. You're on Sid Sports Sunday.
Sid Sports Machine. I love it there. Now, I'm glad Standing Pat finally benched the statue there. Listen, you don't move the weakest link on the offensive line. You bench him and you cut him. The Flowers is a statue that gets pushed over every Sunday. I like to announce that he's been benched today, which he should never even be on the team. And, man, the home run Baker, the touchdown maker out in Cleveland. Man, this guy is unbelievable, Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, he looks good. He does look good. And you're right about Flowers. Look, I understood with Ben McAdoo because they drafted him, right? So sometimes when a coach or a regime, Ricky, drafts somebody, they tend to be more patient than they should be. Shermer comes here. He's got no loyalty to Flowers. And week after week, this guy's getting his ass kicked. He's killing us.
Yeah, but not when he turns the quarterback into a Wile E. Coyote.
Well,
come on.
That's what I'm saying. So I was glad to see that Pat Shermer, I would have thought Shermer would have made this move weeks ago. For some reason, he stuck with Flowers like Ben McAdoo did. My point was he didn't draft him. He didn't bring him in. So I'm not sure why he even stuck with Flowers this long. And there's no question that Eric, whether he's played on the left side or the right side, has been a disaster for Eli Manning. Here's Joe. He's in Babylon on line 5. Good morning, Joseph.
Good morning, Sid. It's Sauce and Sid on a Sunday, baby. How are you?
I'm okay, buddy. Thank you.
Okay. Quick thing. You just brought up about the Raiders and the Dolphins of the 70s. You remember the Sea of Hands game? Raiders won in that last minute. Stable to Clarence Davis in the end zone.
In the back of the end zone to beat the Dolphins. Absolutely.
That you just talked about that. That made me flash back to that year. So I mean, those were great years for the NFL. Second, the Yankees very happy they made the playoffs. They got to get that home field for the wild card game. J-Hap has to start right now. I don't care if it's in New York or on the road. And finally, Sid.
By the way, Tanaka wasn't good in his last start, but he had pitched to a 2.57 ERA in the second half before that. You don't care. You want Hap, right?
I want to go with Hap in this game. I think he's the best fit right now. And finally, Giants at Houston. Giants are going to win today. It's not going to be a pretty game. 17-13 is going to be the final. So, our Giants get the win today in Houston and come back next week to play New Orleans at 4:30. Sid, have a great day, and I'll tune in tomorrow morning.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you so much. Yes, tomorrow morning, 6 to 10. The Bernie and Sid in the Morning Show, the best morning show in New York City, right here on 77 WC. Next week, by the way, very exciting. Joe mentioned it. Giants have a late afternoon home start against the Saints, and hopefully they are, like Joe said, 1-2 and not 0-3. But we're going to take this show, Sid Sports Sunday, on the road next week, and we will do this show next Sunday live from the gorgeous Hard Rock Hotel and Casino on the beach in Atlantic City. So I'm taking my wife there for her birthday. Christina Aguilera's there Friday night. So we're going to do this show live from Atlantic City coming up next Sunday. Anthony, Fort Lee, New Jersey on line 4. Good morning, Anthony. How are you?
Sid, what's happening? I have a question and a comment.
All right.
The question is, if the Giants don't beat the Texans today and they go to 0-3, is Pat Shermer on the hot seat this early in the season?
No, he's only been here for 3 games. It's his first year. Not yet. No.
All right, that's the question. My comment is, listen, man, why do you think you're God's gift to the world? You got to get some humility inside of you, bro.
Okay, thanks, Ant. Appreciate the phone call. I think I'm God's gift to the world because I'm just great at this job. So what? I got plenty of humility, Anthony. I've lived a life. I've been through a lot of things. I'm not going to explain all this. But you're listening every single day because you think I'm great, too. I don't subscribe to, if you think you're great, don't tell everybody. That's just nonsense. The problem is, Anthony, is there's a lot of people amongst us every day that say they're great. Like you, for example. You're not great at anything. I can tell. It took 2 minutes on one phone call to find out you're not great at anything. So guys like you shouldn't be saying stuff like that. But for me, it's fine. Here's Wally, Long Island, line 1. Good morning, Wally.
Sid and Bernie down by the schoolyard. I love it, Sid. This is where I love you. This is where you belong. I love it when you're talking about Minnie Minoza and Mickey Mantle, Mickey and Minnie. This is the Sid Rosenberg that we knew and love and really appreciate when you're doing your sports, Sid. Your mind is a rapid fire sports, this and that, this guy ought to do that, this guy ought to do that. Listen, Sid, I want to see a steel cage match with you and Dino Costa because I had enough of Dino.
God, enough of him too. God, thank you, Wally. My God. Ay. Guy pays his time. He has to pay to go on the radio for 3 hours in the middle of the night on a station that nobody listens to. And somehow he ends up in Bob Raceman's column in the New York Daily News. How much money does Raceman take from those guys? I mean, you talk about a creep, Bob Raceman. Here's Mario. He's in Brooklyn this morning. Good morning, Mario. How are you, pal?
Hey, listen, popularity breeds contempt, bottom line. And you're doing a great job over there. You got a lot of experience. The other thing is Francesca, boy, he's crapping in his pants. Oh, my God.
Well, listen, he can't like the fact, Mario, thank you for the phone call. He can't like the fact that he does a show very similar to ours. If you like him better, that's fine. You like me better, that's fine. Truth is, they're very similar shows. Very. And he's charging money. And this is free. So, and my company, Craig Schwab and the powers that be here are doing a really good job. They actually promote this show on Twitter. Do a great job with that. And they will send out a tweet that will say, hey, Sid's got Chuck Todd, Bill O'Reilly, Joe Theismann, Conor McGregor, blah, blah, blah. He's got Danny B making picks. He's got, Danielle, Brandon doing a fantasy. He's got all this going on. And it's free. My guys are going on too, but it's $9 or $100 for the year. So you have to ask yourself this question. Why would you pay for something when you can get the same thing, if not better, for free? We will wrap things up right after these words.
WABC.
Let's go!
Don't miss a minute of Sid Sports Sunday. Driven by Ramsey Mazda. Get him on demand when you want it.
Let's go! It's time to play!
OGPodcastNetwork.com and WABCRadio.com.
All right, big day of football coming up. Giants again looking for their first win in Houston for the Texans. Kickoff about 3 hours away. Yankees back in action today. They clinched yesterday. I want to thank a bunch of people for today's show. Obviously, Isaiah, very nice job. Bruce Clayton hitting all the right buttons, does a tremendous job. Our guest today, Chuck Todd, former Redskin quarterback Joe Theismann. All of the Bianculos. They're such a lovely family. Danny and his beautiful wife Jamie and the boys Jaden and Jace. I want to thank John Layfield too. Nice job, John. And my boss, Craig Schwab. And, of course, the executive producer extraordinaire of this fine program, the genius that is Michael Gunzelman. Excellent job, Mike. Have a great week. Enjoy the football today. Let's go, Giants. Until tomorrow morning at 6. Bernie and Sid in the morning here on WABC. And next Saturday at 8, live from Atlantic City. Have yourself a good Sunday, folks. Sid Sports Sunday. See you next week.